All right, do I have everybody? Am I missing anybody?
I think 3, 4, 5, 6, we're all here.
Perfect.
I would like to start by calling this meeting to order. We start with owner's comments. Where's Patrick? Patrick's over there so he can help me watch that. We start with the owner's comments up front. Name and address, and you got a 3-minute limitation. Or when we discuss a specific topic, we also allow people to talk during that same rule. So do we have any owners that would like to speak up front first tonight?
There weren't any on the list.
None on the list. Anybody online or in the room? Okay, great. Let's kick off the meeting then. Susanna, pardon? That's right. Can I verify that we have a quorum?
Yes, you have everybody here tonight.
Perfect. Was the meeting properly noticed?
Yes, it was at least 48 hours in advance.
Perfect. Can I ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. How many people do we have online? Approximately
About 15.
15, so, okay, thank you. We've probably got another 15 in here right now. We're still gathering, so thanks to everybody for joining us. First thing I'd like to do is call the meeting to order. And I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any comments on the agenda? Has this,
Did we have some modifications?
did we, item number,
We
we're going to defer the covenant, which was item number 8. Is 8 on the agenda up there? I can't tell. It is.
on
It
the
is.
agenda. We could
So
remove it.
you removed it or you did?
We could not
Okay,
remove it.
so we're going to defer the covenants conversation tonight because management needs to talk to the covenants committee more before we're ready to have that conversation in public. I see heads nodding in the audience that they're happy with that discussion.
Were we replacing that with something?
No, we weren't.
Okay.
Because we killed
Okay,
that.
got it.
So we are, with that change, any other comments to the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're good to go. Approval of the minutes of January 12th, 2022. And just, can I have a motion for that, please?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay, and board comments. What I will say for the audience is we've had comments that we haven't been posting minutes properly fast enough, and we agree. So what we are going to do is we're going to have a meeting. We're going to develop the minutes, review them in between, and always at the next meeting, approve them. So that way we're much more timely. We've got grant manners in place now, so we want that transition and the making of minutes and posting online to happen much faster. Any comments on the minutes? For the audience, we always review the minutes in advance and make all our comments and changes before the draft that goes in here. So all in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good to go. Financial update. Ariel, can you take the lead here, please?
Yes. We were able to complete the transition for the November financials for CROA. We did find some balance sheet items from CCMC that are not making any sense, that we're looking into that. So I'm going to have Dawn explain a little bit more.
Don, why don't you explain who Don is?
Dawn is the Director of Accounting for Grand Manor.
Don, take it away.
Well, I expected more from Ariel before he turned it over to me. We did complete the November financials. Artisan Park was the holdout because we had to exchange information with Evergreen back and forth to get the books paralleled into the system. And the right now, I guess the main thing we can pull from the financials right now is that we are in good cash position for our current obligations. We have going to work with the balance sheet items that Ariel mentioned. Also include some unexplained due froms we're trying to figure out and get to the bottom of those. And we have a we're still on that learning curve, and I think we've hit the crust of it, and we're understanding the operation more solid, and be able to give you better updates as we go along. But the November financials are complete. The transition on the financial side is complete. We know there's still some staffing issues that are going to be discussing coming up here. But is there any specific things you need to know about the financials, or any specific questions or concerns?
So let me go. I received the November financials. Cindy received, who's our treasurer, received the November financials. Her and I are going to meet with Ariel next Thursday and go through them. At the last meeting, we said that November would be here around the 20th of January, which it was. So we need to review that. Basically, the purpose of that review is to say, this looks weird, this looks weird. We want to make these changes so that we got something. At that meeting, we said then any changes from that review session would go to be inputted. December's actively being worked on. We were expecting December financials, if I remember right, by February 15th, and then we were expecting January financials by February 20th. So in all honesty, what's been happening is Grand Manor inherited everything in whatever shape it was in. They put a lot of time and effort into it. We expect by the end of February to be in a normal reporting cycle with them. I did look at the cash balances. The cash balances for the community looked darn good. I am fully aware that we have been reticent to report this information to the community. And while I apologize, we also don't want to put information out that's wrong. We actually we're in the transition, and we always thought it would take about 4 months, and it's going right along that way from a financial transition perspective. Did I state that properly, Don?
Sounds good to me.
Jackson?
When the financials came out, I went into the CROA portal, and as board members, we have access to more data, but there was an extraordinary amount of data that I could drill down into and look at that I've never been able to see previously, and that was very, very helpful. For residents on your portal, there's not as much detail, but you're able to actually see our cash balances, our reserve balances. There's a fair amount of information out there for you. So as we populate that database, there's going to be more there to be able to look at. Is that a fair statement, that we're literally populating it now as we go along?
That is a fair statement.
Okay. So I think that for us as directors, we are going to be, for the first time, really able to work with real data in real time. And one example of this, very small example, but significant, was that we discovered that Mattamy had not been billed for the properties that they had platted. And you were able to see that when you drilled down into the data, and then Ariel was able to fix that and start the billing. Am I correct about that?
That is correct.
We would not have known that previously. That kind of stuff would have just never been at the director's level to see. And so I think we're moving in the right direction on all this, but it's a lot more data. It's a lot more information that's accessible to us and to the community.
And just for the sake of saying it, that building should have went out into the prior management company. So, but the reality of the matter is we've got a finance committee, got a lot of smart people on it. We need to start getting information to the finance committee. We need to start actually getting into the financials, because we have learned things where we said, darn. And so we're getting there. It's moving at a time frame that makes sense. I have every expectation that when we start reviewing it in detail in February, we're going to find more questions, but we'll start moving on the questions to get the process cleaned up, and that's what we got to do. On the financials, I fully would hope and expect, our next board meeting is February 9th. And February 9th, we ought to have in a treasurer summary for November, and then when we get into the later February meeting, we could hopefully have one for December or maybe even January, and start getting back to reporting that information and get into a cycle that works. Any other board questions on the financials? Okay, thank you.
Let's go to transition and management update. What I want to start with here is we've got some people from Grand Manor's senior executive management here. Lauren, can we just introduce the players in the back row there so everybody knows they're online?
So we have Stacy Titleman here.
Hello, everybody. Nice to see
We have
everybody.
Amber Orduno,
I'm Amber Orduno.
and then we have Roger.
Okay, so who is Stacy Tinel? Who is Amber? And who's Roger? That didn't tell me a thing.
I say, we'll be happy to introduce ourselves to you. Thank you for that soft intro, Lauren. No, well done. Stacy Titleman, Executive Vice President for Grand Manors. I have the distinct privilege of running our division across North America, and of course was very, very integral with all of the steps that took place with the RFP committee, current board, and through the transition, and obviously through today. I am here today with two of our esteemed colleagues. I'll let Amber introduce herself, and then we'll bring Roger in as well. Go ahead.
I'm Amber Orduno. I've met most of you. I was on site here for, 4 or 5 months, spearheading the transition. Vice President here with Grand Manors, and I'm thrilled to be back. It's good to see all your smiling faces.
Hello, everyone. I'm Roger Edwards. I'm the Vice President of On-Site Management for Florida. I actually live in Orlando. I'm local, and I'm getting engaged in celebration as a resource for Lauren and the on-site team here. So nice to meet everyone, and thank you for inviting me tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And what I would like to do is as we get into various topics, I would hope that some of the executives from Grand Manors could add color to some of the conversation we're having. I'd like to start with just before we turn it over to Lauren to talk about a little bit here is, really Grand Manors was supposed to take over the account at January 1st. We accelerated that, and they agreed to accelerate that November 1st. We're very appreciative. The reason that happened is there were marbles spilling all over the floor, and it was not a good situation, and to put it off 2 more months would have been a worse situation. That is the reality of the situation that we were at. A lot of people in this room, online and everything knew that. We were always under the expectation that this would take 6 to 9 months for a full transition. I think we're still along that line, but I want to open things up for other board members to speak on the transition. And I'd like to also start jumping into Lauren. Maybe you can update on staffing. Let's talk about the call center, where the portal's at, where loading data or loading information online, and all kinds of things at. And as she goes through an item, board members jump in.
All right, I'll start with staffing. Currently,
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? If you guys don't mind, when you talk to me, just drop your mask if you don't mind and put it back up. I know Grand Manors has a rule, but they don't have one on. That just makes it clear.
All right, I'll start with staffing. So currently we have made offers to a maintenance lead and new front counter staff. They are in the onboarding process with corporate. The front counter staff will start on February 2nd, which will be a great help to residents and the call center, as our front counter staff is triaging calls that are transferred to us from the call center. The maintenance lead should start in the next couple of weeks, which will give Brian a great break and a great help. So that's great. We also made an offer to a maintenance tech today. So that will fill up our maintenance team, hopefully when he accepts the position and we onboard him. So that's a big positive step that we made today. We are still looking for a community standards manager, but we have interviews set tomorrow. And then we still have 3 part-time parks positions open, and those are the parks and pool monitors.
So let me just make sure I understand. So you're saying, because originally when you inherited the situation on November 13th, there were 13 open full-time positions. There were 8 open part-time positions. Where we are at today is you've got 1 open full-time position and 3 open part-time positions. You have filled everything in a period of 90 days. Pretty
That's
much.
where we stand right now.
So I'm repeating something just to make it perfectly clear. We went from being at half staff to we're darn near at full staff. Does any board members have any question on staffing?
The only thing is, I noticed a new face in this back row here.
I was
Somebody
introduced her. So this is our new service area manager. This is Natalie Maurer.
Hi, everyone, I'm
She
Natalie.
has years of experience in hotel management, and she will be a great asset. She's hit the ground running already and has been picking things up left and right. And she's already going out to walk properties with some of the service area teams. So she's doing a great job already.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to comment on the staffing, I think you've done a marvelous job in filling all those vacancies. The perspective is in this hiring market or in this market where it's hard to fill positions, you have filled positions in a very quick period of time. So thank you for that.
A lot of the hard work was Susanna's before I got here too, so she's worked diligently.
Yeah,
on that.
I'm looking at both. I'll look at both of you, Susanna and Lauren.
So I'll move on to call center training and responsiveness. I've been working with Chad Seville in the call center regularly since the meeting right before our last board meeting. We're still working out some kinks in terms of transferring calls to the call center, but I think the calls to Susanna have dwindled that don't apply to her. She's still getting some of those, so we're still working through the process, but we're getting there. I'm also working on inputting information into CROA in the calendar, which will help answer a lot of questions that the Grand Manor's call center doesn't know, like when's the board meeting, when's the dog park meeting, when's the daddy-daughter dance, things of that nature. So with that in there, that will help them out tremendously.
So help me, and maybe from the back row there, we could get a little help here too, because like I saw something posted online today about somebody said they had to wait 7 or 8 minutes just on hold and stuff like that. How do we monitor how long people are on hold when they're getting transferred? How do we get board reports of that?
You can just request them. I can get them for you. And I wanted to add a little something to what Lauren said. I'll stand up since nobody can see me. With the call center, with some of the complaints that we were getting when Lauren and I had, we had a meeting with the head of the call center of why homeowners may say that they're on hold for, 6 or 7 minutes. And one of the things that we tried to really nail down was we found out that they were putting the homeowners on hold, calling town hall and going from desk to desk to try and get an actual person for them if they wouldn't say, perhaps where they lived or what their address was. And so one of the things that we directed them to do is that instead of having someone on hold for 6 minutes and, obviously trying to be helpful, but in turn it just angers the customer, is that if that's happening and you don't know where to direct them, to transfer the call to the front desk at town hall and they will triage the call. But for reports, they are all tracked as far as minutes, hold times, if the call was resolved. If you do want those reports, just let me know. You can let Lauren know and she can get those from me.
One of the things I'm just going to drop in here for a minute is there's a small part of me that appreciates that somebody might not be at their desk when a resident calls. I think I did read something about somebody, Parks and Recreation manager, that a resident was trying to get in contact with them. Well, to be very honest, I don't want to see a Parks and Rec manager sitting at their desk 40 hours a week. This is a very large community, and that individual is out walking the grounds and walking by manager or managed by walking. And for me, I appreciate that. Having that call center is to assist those here with boots on the ground to really get this community back to where it is. It's a new way of management compared to how the previous management company was. That's why everybody was inside this office all the time and the rest of the areas were not being looked at. So one out of this board, I appreciate the way that this is going. It just takes time with that change.
To add to your point, Kevin, one of the things that we have talked about, Dawn talks about the financial portion of the transition, pretty much being complete. But what's not complete of the transition is the staffing plan, the onboarding, the training of the staff, and how that's going to look moving forward. One of the things that you had just mentioned is one of the main questions that the call center cannot assist with is reservations. And it's because they need Parks and Rec for that. They don't know what's going on. So one of the things we have talked about is those calls having an additional front desk person who does work for the Parks and Recs department, who is only handling those facilities, those reservations and things like that going forward.
Excellent. Things like that is a great short term possibly. I know the previous management company, they encourage having a separate website for Parks and Rec, and that's why that software was a little more challenging. Over time, once we get that foundation built and the walls are up and so on and so forth, that might be another story that we can add on the house that we're working on to go ahead and find more efficient ways, and it might be a change to that website.
And a better reservation system if you're talking about.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we're looking into.
It's clearly not 1 through 10, but it will get there.
Have used it before and not a fan.
Yeah.
So a couple of things. With this discussion on the call center, what I appreciate is the nimbleness, meaning we as a board and you as management heard some concerns and you're making changes. And as we identify issues like with the reservation system, I think that one of the things we particularly like as a board in selecting Grand Manors is you're always looking for more efficiencies and more customer service. And to Kevin's point on this, how do we further that so things are easier and maybe it doesn't require a person at a front desk doing that sort of function. Maybe people can do it on their own. So pushing things towards the portal, or towards other efficiencies, whatever that might be. The other piece is that what I would appreciate, for example, with a call center is that there's some regular way of me going in as a board member to look into our director's portal to look at the nature of the calls. In other words, they're probably all coded. You know, this was a maintenance call, this is reservations call. So I can say, oh, 90% were on this, or here's something that happened just in the last 2 weeks. Why do we have an influx of X versus Y? But I would appreciate that, whether it's real time or it's posted on a weekly basis or whatever. But rather than making a query of you, that it's always there, some sort of information metrics, specifically on the call center, the nature of the calls. Dovetailing with call center is when you have walk-ins to the front desk. Does that all get integrated? Because it's like they're calling with their physical body at the front desk.
It does not with the call center, but that's one of the things that we spoke about when we first started the transition. Obviously the transition, there was more of an influx of traffic.
Right. How do I set up
we talked about is how can we track that, because there is more walk-in traffic than I think everybody realizes.
Right. And so it's just a matter of tracking so that we can start looking at that and you can start looking at that, and how do we shift based on whatever's happening?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Jackson.
One of the things that I've noticed is that the community has higher expectations, and that's a good thing. It's good that we would expect more out of our management company. It's good that we would expect more in the way of communication at the front desk and communication with the various individuals. And we should continue to push that. But I also think it's helpful to remember that for 25 years, we watched a steadily declining level of service. And suddenly to assume that by flipping a switch, that things would all be fixed is unrealistic. That doesn't mean we say we're satisfied with where we are.
Right.
It just means that for those who have said, I can't get enough answers from going to town hall directly, were you able to do that a year ago? I don't think so. So I want you to get your answers. I think we all do.
Right.
And I think we're all working to make that happen, and we're diligently trying to figure out how to improve it. But let's keep some perspective as we do it, that we are starting from not even a level ground. In some ways, we were really at a deficit at the end. And so we're having to fix some things that were systemically wrong. And I think we're moving in the right direction.
One thing I would very much like in the board packages to have call center information. I don't want to tell you what, you've got something. Pick one of your communities that has the best call center report, and let's start with that one. But something that said on an average day or in this 2-week period, you took 2,000 calls, whatever the right answer is. And if 2,000 of the calls got addressed in 1 minute and 15 seconds, and we had it on the report there, we can say, this is what happened. Because it's easy to sit there and say, my call took 8 minutes, so everybody's call must take 8 minutes, when I'm sure there's going to be a call that takes 8 minutes. I mean, that's life. But if it turns out that 0.01% of our calls take 8 minutes and 98% of them get done in less than 1 minute, I want to be able to show that and say that.
Yep.
and you must have something, so I don't want to.
It will also show you a resolution rate for what got answered through the call center before, if it didn't get transferred, obviously it's called resolved. So it will give you a percentage rate. It'll tell you how long they were on hold, if they got transferred. It was the reports that I used to send, that I sent you in the very beginning, just so that you knew how much traffic we were
So
getting.
just ask and work with Laura and Susanna, get something that just comes right out of your system.
Yeah.
We drop it in the package here, people get used to seeing it. And that, David and Kevin, if somebody's talking about it, we can target areas of concern, great, but we need something to start looking at and to tell the community, here's the facts.
And the reason for the call will be there as well.
Okay.
And I will say that I had a resident come up to me just within the last couple of days and tell me that they had a wonderful experience at the call center. They called, we answered, question was answered, boom, boom, thank you very much. And so.
Perfect. Anything else on the call center for anybody? All right. Can we go to online portals, completeness?
So kind of tailing on to the call center, I've been working on completing some of the online portal things. We're working to get training for some of the other staff so they can start uploading the meeting minutes and agendas into CROA and make them publicly available in people's resident portals. In the meantime, since we're working on that, we want to make them available now for everybody. So Patrick has been working diligently to update the town hall website. And Patrick, if you want to go to the rec committee page. So once he's completed, this is what the other committee pages are going to look like. It'll have the committee members, the chair, all listed. It'll have the email to email and contact them, the link to the meeting schedule on the website. And then scrolling further down, you see all the agendas from previous months.
So now, because I'm an old man who can't see that far, so going up there, it'll have the agendas and any supporting package materials. It'll have the minutes up there too.
Eventually, yes.
So you're gonna, so you'll have the agenda and package, you'll have the minutes, and what about the videos for the meetings?
There's a link in this page as well to the video page where they are all currently being uploaded, and the items in green have already been uploaded. Then there's some gray items that have not been uploaded. Uploading these takes time because we have to edit the videos to cut out the kind of the 15 minutes from when we start the call, where there's a little chatter, and the kind of the 10 minutes at the end. But I was just speaking with Roger, and he volunteered his services to assist Patrick in this endeavor. So they're going to connect, and he's going to help out Spiel on that process.
Just so I can say it for everybody listening online, board, which is the CROA board, and the committees will have all agendas with packages there. I think you've already done that for CROA. It will have the minutes and it will have the videos. So and I assume the video is going to be on a page exactly like this.
Yeah, the CROA videos are
page, it would be the same thing
on top of this, above this on this page.
So everything will be loaded. It'll be accessed. We understand there's been a lag, but Grant Manor is working hard to catch up.
How far back are we going to go on minutes and recordings?
We're starting with 6 months. And if you want us to backfill further, we will, but we just wanted to start with 6 months to get.
To me, for board, and this is a question actually for the board itself, I think we ought to keep a lot of history, but for committees, it might be good to keep a period like 6 months. If we put one up, we take one down, just I'm thinking size and
6
scale and
month
stuff
rolling,
like that.
6 month rolling.
Or Kevin, you're grimacing. You disagree?
I mean, I think there's so many things that happen that we reflect back on things from years past. We can talk about any hot button topic that's going on in the community right now that has been going on for years, and it could be beneficial to have that information later on. For example, a special event that may no longer exist, having the minutes reflect why that event wasn't successful or why it left.
I was only talking the video.
The video.
The video itself, I'm sorry, the video.
Yeah,
itself.
the minutes, I think the minutes and the agenda
All
should
minutes
stay there for
They can
as
stay.
long as we
Yeah.
can. Because there was a point, and what does it cost to store videos? I mean, is it cheap? Is it expensive, space-wise and stuff like that? And if we don't know the answer off our top of head, could we just let us know? I mean, if it costs $1,000 a year, no big deal. And if it's really cumbersome and expensive, tell us that for some of the committees and stuff like that.
And what's our anticipated time? Let's say there's a meeting. Last night there was a recreation committee meeting. How long would we have as a parameter to get that posted online?
Normally, well, I would say,
After we get everything loaded.
once we get everything loaded, it could be done within like 24 hours.
For the
24 to
video,
48
for the
hours
video.
For the video, yes.
The minutes.
The minutes
Right, I
wouldn't
understand.
come until the next
Till they've been
committee
approved.
meeting.
But I think there's been comment about not being able to see videos. And so if there's a 24-hour expectation, of business days.
40.
Typically. What is it?
48.
48.
Jackson, no matter what, if you have a committee meeting that week that was filmed,
Yeah.
it should be available by the end of the week.
Okay.
And a great example, Celia just showed me, the meeting from yesterday is already
It's
uploaded.
already loaded.
Yes.
That's amazing.
So
Thanks, Patrick.
these are things that did not exist with our previous company. And I just need the community to recognize those things.
Are we still posting things on YouTube meetings or no?
Well, you might host them there, but they're hidden. It's not available it's not next to cat videos.
But I
You want
have
the cat
actually
videos?
found them. No, I like shoots and videos.
Recent or old ones?
I don't remember. But I didn't, I was
It
just,
shouldn't be.
I was just
Shouldn't be
fiddling
there.
around
It
and
should
they
be
were
behind
still
the
there.
wall. It should be behind the wall, I hope.
If you come across one, let us know.
Okay, so anything else? I'm
The
sorry,
only,
David.
the only other minor thing I would add for each committee page, every year there's a new, if you will, charter, mission statement, assignments, goals, whatever we call that. So just to keep us fresh, this is what this committee is charged with doing. Because that gives parameters,
It's an administrative resolution.
Yeah, that's right.
whatever we call it.
That's what you call it.
That's what we call it?
Yep.
Okay. Other things that you have? Okay, I have one more on the transition. We have had residents request to understand if there is a transition plan and stuff like that. Maybe I'm going to ask someone in the back row to talk about the transition plan, and can we put the transition plan in the package as a normal item, just like we talked about the call center, so somebody can see it and how we're performing against it. From a board perspective, we all understood that the transition was going to take, I think 6 to 9 months is a fair term, and we knew there was, we've talked about finance, for example, we knew there was going to be 3 to 4 months of conversion. We're hoping that's a bell curve, it gets better and better as you get close to the tail. But it'd be good to hear somebody talk a little bit about the transition plan, how they think it's going from a Grand Manor's perspective. Because I think from a board perspective, we have tried to get out of the weeds and stay away. We don't know Grand Manor's systems. We do not know Grand Manor's personnel in Plano and stuff like that. Us getting involved from a board perspective would actually, I think, hurt the project, because all they have to do is train one more person to be out of the way. So we hired professionals who are competent, who've done this many times, but I think the public has a right to understand your plan and how you monitor against it and how we could give the public more comfort. And could somebody in the back row and talk to that?
So in the RFP that we provided we had the metrics of the checklist of the transition timeline. All of those items, and that's financial, those are all data driven. That's all complete. So from that standpoint, the transition is complete. Now, what I circled back to a little while ago, the transition portion not complete is the staffing plan. We have 1 full-time position open. We have 3 part-time positions open. There are things as we go along that we see are efficient or not efficient that we're trying to tweak. Realistically, to measure that success is going to be probably after about 12 months for that. As far as the data, that portion is all complete. We're working on populating more information in the bells and whistles and CROA. The standard information is in there. Lauren, the calendar, things like that, so that you guys can see and actually log into the portal and use all those items. How is it going? A community of this size of your guys' complexity with all the service areas, the commercial entities went amazingly well for the time frame and what we had to work with. The amount of misinformation we had at the beginning from prior management company and trying to sort all that out. But as far as the transition has gone, it really has gone famously, in my opinion.
Are you able to meet the contract metrics?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we already have. As far as what you guys received in your RFP, we definitely already have. And I will tell you that one of the things that made this transition very easy and I won't say seamless, but very easy on us was the collaboration of the board, the willingness to listen to us, to be open to change, efficiency, and open to staying out of the way and letting us try and do what we need to do to get things done. So as far as moving forward, it really is mostly with the staff and just building that cohesive team, getting them trained so that everybody knows and understands the processes and everything is running smoothly.
Other board guys?
I got a couple, but you want to go?
Well, just one quick comment. A big part of the transition is hiring an executive director. And our honest view at the time of selection was that we might be going into March or April of 2022 and still not having an executive director. And the fact that we were able to do a nationwide search and interview and really select what I think is an extraordinary choice in Lauren in a very short period of time, and then get her here and get her in the community, and the responsiveness and the work that you've demonstrated is just simply a light change difference from what we had experienced before. And again, I know that everyone, all of us want it to be perfect right now, today, but honestly, the work that you're putting in is, I think, magnificent. And I'm really very pleased. And I have no doubt that in spite of the very steep learning curve, a year from now, we're going to look back and go, wow, how did you do that? And it will seem very different to us. So I think that's a big part of this transition. And I appreciate that you have hung in there. I know this is the third night this week that you've been out till past my bedtime. And, I appreciate very much that you're doing that.
I'm just going to jump in and say something that's probably not entirely popular throughout the community right now, but I'm going to say that the transition has gone as expected. We sat down, and it's an unrecorded video because it was an RFP process, but we had a Q&A session all day with you and the other runner-up. And you actually asked, how will we measure success when it comes to your performance here? And every board member answered differently. My answer was 12 months. My answer was September of next year, I will sit back and be able to reflect if this was the right decision. This is a community, as we all know, that's filled with alphas, that's filled with a certain type of personality, and we want it, and we want it now. I'm the worst one with it, I will tell you that. When the community started, you hear stories from founders that recognize families moved here from somewhere else with their troubles, and their troubles came with them. And those troubles don't disappear the day after they move in. And so it's not going to be any different when this company, or any company, to be fair, comes in for a transition. I think, considering everything going on in the world right now, the economy, the staffing challenges, people in general, I am going to tie back to it's going as expected, because it's not just a single family home part of the transition. It is 13 service areas. 14. Transition knows it. Don't forget about that one. You didn't like that one. But you have multiple boards. You have this board. You have the CROA board, CJC. You have CCS, different entities. You have all these players. And then let's not forget about our favorite neighbors who always say, I get preferential treatment, because we all know they came through as well. And it's breaking that system back to a consistent, fair, equal process to allow management to manage. And management is finally able to manage. So September, I hope to continue to say it goes as expected, but I, for one, think you guys are on that path.
So thank you.
Other board members?
Yeah, to me, the broad perspective is we made a decision in August. You mentioned at the beginning of this little dialogue that an update that we shortened it by 40%. And Grand Manor's graciously accepted that. So I think that's an important perspective. Kevin's point, let's take a look in 12 months. Yeah, it's a full year to settle in, but you all are prioritizing. You've done, from where I sit on the board and as a resident, you're prioritizing it with what's important to the residents first. And then we're going to get to a lot of the details later. And some of those details in the long term are making things a little more efficient. We've talked about that a little bit. But I do have one specific query, and that has to do with the portal. The portals, we've talked about that a lot. We talk about the resident portal. And we're relying on residents to access information for themselves, whether it's reporting a covenants violation or looking at their ARC application or all of this, looking at the financial records for themselves and for the community as a whole. How many residents have actually, if you will, registered or signed up, or how many actually have the portal that's activated? Because they have to go online, and every resident got a letter that said, here's your ID and so forth. Do you know what the answer is?
Yeah, we do. Oh, perfect. Of the 4,985 properties, of the 4,985 properties, we have 2,515 residents that have engaged in the resident portal.
Okay, and so that's roughly over 50%, which means nearly 50%, 48, 49% have not. And so we're talking with them and we're relying on them, relying on all residents to access their portal. Just under half have not. So as we think about communication, and we'll be pushing communication out through the portal, we also talk about communication on multiple vehicles, meaning we use the Celebration News, the Friday Flash, this and that, bulletin boards, whatever. They have them at the pools. They're under glass. But that's something for us to think about. How do we get 100%? How do we get to 100?
Yeah, I was talking with JR about that a little bit earlier, probably last week, talking about setting up a table at a food truck Friday with a tablet out there to try to engage residents that haven't logged into the portal to register. He's also assisting me in setting up meetings in the neighborhoods. So I will be out in the neighborhoods, probably from like 5 to 6 throughout the month.
In the morning?
PM.
Just checking.
So to meet with residents who want to come meet with me, if they have questions, concerns, comments, ideas, I want to hear it. So that I will have a tablet there at those meetings, trying to engage people to get logged on.
So my larger point is all of this is evolving. And I also want to say, again, I appreciate the partnership that we have, your nimbleness, your professionalism, because that's what we hired you for. And I, as a board member, here we are, 11 weeks into the process. It's a culture change. So thank you.
It seems like it's been forever.
I understand.
In a very good way. She means that in a very good way.
But for all of us as residents who are, as Kevin so well said, or said so well, either way, we're impatient, and our residents we wanted it yesterday, because there's magic here or whatever.
And to be fair, I just counted real quick. We give the president more time to make a difference. We're only at day 87. So the president of the U.S. has at least to 100 until we start complaining. You guys haven't had that.
Okay. So
Let me, one more thing.
Go ahead.
So the fact that you're going to be in the different neighborhoods, years ago, we did that with the CROA board members each month. Would you like company of, 1 or 2 board members when you do that, or you prefer to be alone? Just throwing that out there. You decide.
You are welcome to
But I
attend
think-
if you so choose, and I will share the dates and information with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me summarize on the transition. The board spent one heck of a lot of time over the last 2 days talking about the transition, talking about it with executives from Texas and everywhere else. We made a ton of progress. We're going to keep transition and management update is item 1, is a discussion item for a long time. I hope the items evolve. If residents think another category is added there, but we'll have the call center report. We'll continue to talk about the portal. You know, I hope staffing is just a non-event as we get fully to staffing, but we'll add the transition plan from a big picture basis. But we are, as a board, and there's 4 of us that are going to be here in March. Grand Manors,
in May, and
yeah, Grand Manors, we have their back. It has worked. It is working well. When we say it's working, we realize it's not working perfectly. We need, and they understand, we want to enhance the service place. But also, we went through a long process that involved 50, 60, 70 people doing the evaluation. Grand Manors was selected by one heck of a lot of them. We're going to have their back to move towards that 1-year point. I think Kevin says it very well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to move off transition unless there's anything else.
Do you want any resident comments? This is the part of the agenda where.
Okay. Is there any resident comment from anybody in the room or online about the transition? Come on up, please. And Gary, give them your name and address.
Right.
Who's that guy?
Oh. Good evening, Gary Hudson, 1471 Resolute Street. I'm going to write you an email, but I can do this in less than 60 seconds. What I was looking for a transition scorecard is take the proposal from Grand Manors, which has about a 3 or 4 page checklist. Publish that checklist either online or in the magazine and check off the things you've done. Now, I know you already said, I don't know, I'm guessing 95% of those are complete. I'm from Missouri, show me. I'm talking about the people who are not paying attention, and I'm here all the time. But show the residents in the magazine that we've done all these things that you talked about tonight. That's a positive. And then expand that to the items that you still know we need to take care of, like the staffing positions, some of the things on the portal, things like that. Expand it to a little bit more so that people understand where you're coming from. That goes a long way. And then publish that. I had something about Friday Flash. I've lost track of that. But show us visually what you're saying, because there's only less than 75 people on this. But oh yes, about the emails. I'm sorry, about the 51% of the people that have logged on to the portal. Put that in a Friday Flash. JR can put a big headline in there that says, hey, if you haven't signed up, we've got 49% of you that haven't yet. Get online and do it.
Yeah.
You're going to get a lot more people in a Friday Flash and a shotgun email that goes to all the email addresses in the community that we know of, better than sitting at a table in the cold at the food truck.
Perfect.
So thanks for listening.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Can we, Amber, can we get a brave volunteer to help with this?
Sure.
Thank you. We have a couple of comments online. Concur with the suggestion. They like Gary's suggestion on the checklist with the progress. And one gentleman would welcome a table at Celebration Little League opening day for residents to sign up on the portal. So somebody's starting to want to use the portal, and that will actually drive people to the portal. So I love that suggestion, actually, and we should do more of that.
Yeah.
Any other comments online or in the room, or I'm moving on? Thank you. Update for ongoing projects. Engineering work for the Civic Corridor, which would have been the report on lots B and D, the range of cost estimates, showed up tonight about 4:15, 4:20, and I was already on one meeting going into another meeting, and I've not looked at it. We haven't sent it anywhere. I need to look at it tomorrow. It will get floated out to people on the rec committee, people on the pickleball task force, other task forces, the board, all that type of, so people can start looking at it and we can start understanding it, but I want to read it first to make sure it doesn't say fire the president or something like that. And
you would.
Yeah. So we've got the report in and we start looking at it, we get the feedback and stuff, and we keep moving forward. I will welcome any comments from the board on this. If there's any questions, I will also welcome it online or in the room.
So this is a normal process for a project, right? To You try to get it, the general concept, we've talked it out for a couple of years now. Celia pointed out all the dates that things were said and done in public meetings. And now the next step is to start putting some numbers together with a design, right? In other words, when we did the ball fields, it just kind of got dumped on us and said, here it is. And then we had project creep or expansion. And this time we're saying, let's start with an actual design, see what that would cost and work our way back in and build it from there. Am I accurate up to this point?
Yeah.
So having done that, we are in the next logical phase of what happens. And I've heard some comments over the last few weeks where people said, well, that means it's a done deal. That's not my understanding. My understanding is we are now going to get some more data. We're going to look at that. We're going to be able to discuss it, bring it to the various constituencies and to the community, and then say, does this particular design and plan make sense to us as a board? And having gotten all of that input, then it's our responsibility as a board to make a decision to go forward or not, because we're the ones committing the money.
Right, and to be very clear, so let's break it into two things. With lawn sports, I'm drawing a blank on the name. Albert Riddle is working to take the designs, finalize it so we can get ready to go out to bids. Once we get bids, and we've said we're going to do a la carte bids in one field, two fields, we're going to look at the cost, we're going to look at the run rate and everything. The board hasn't had that conversation. We don't have that information. So what we're doing is getting ready to get the bids and everything so we can get that data.
Right.
From the perspective of Lot D and what we're doing there, we're going to do the same approach. Right now, we're getting this final design work, which we'll float around getting comments on, so that we can actually go out and get an engineer to develop the full design, which we got to have to go out for bids at. So there, when you talk about that, we're still in phase, getting ready for phase 2 of 3. Now, as I am going back from the conversation, once we tell them to develop the design work, they told me that took 2 months. You know, getting the contractor to give us bids, they can usually do that in another 30 days. So, you know, little luck, that's 90, 120 days. And then you're sitting there and you're looking at the numbers. And we'll be looking at the numbers for, do we add a parking lot or not? We'll be looking at the numbers for Lot D. We'll be looking at what pickleball costs. We're going to have all those component pieces. We'll show people, we'll talk about it, and then we'll make a decision. So nothing has been decided other than we're ready to move forward with these designs to get the information. Anybody have questions, or is that pretty clear? I'm looking around the room, everybody's nodding their head yes. Anyone online got a question? I'm happy to take it.
So just to put a bow on it, we're following best practices here. We're not doing something out of the ordinary. We're not doing something unusual. We're not doing something that you wouldn't do or recommend to your other communities. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
It's probably worth saying it too. I mean, CROA, working with like the Recreation Committee and that, has done surveys in 2010, 2013, 2017, and 2019. We've surveyed the world. We got lots of pretty consistent answers. So I was lucky enough to talk to Dory Moore a couple of months ago, and she showed me the results of all those, which I actually put together in a spreadsheet, and have showed a lot of people. They, being the Recreation Committee, have had a very specific and disciplined approach of clicking items off the list. The items we're talking about now were all on the list. We as a board do not argue for a second that the first item on the list was parking. We understand that. Parking is something that CROA board believes it really can't tackle. Maybe CDD can, they've got the ability to float a bond or something like that, but a parking solution, where would you put it? What is the need? That's pretty big. The next highest priority clearly was a community center, a performing arts center, and an adult senior center type center and stuff like that. We looked at a lot of stuff. We have not ignored those, but I mean, we looked at Stetson. It got bought by somebody. You know, we wanted, when you talk about the AMC Theater, people talk about it, but we needed all the town center lawsuits to get settled, and we needed some comfort that even once they got settled, that everybody was going to perform as they should. You know, we could talk about this building, we could talk about building somewhere else. Those are complicated decisions, and I visited places, other people visited places. You could easily be talking about $8, $10, $12 million. So then we started picking off the next items that goes all the way back to when we had board members at like January of 2020, when we said we would go after pickleball, we would go after lawn sports. And the third item we talked about was Artisan Park Playground, which got buried in many different gyrations. So we've actually been going at this now for about 2 years.
His heart rate just went up.
Pardon?
His heart rate just went up.
Well, but those were the three things we did. And it, you know, two of them are still alive, which is why we're having the conversation we have. So these are not, these have been part of a strategic plan from the surveys that have been out there since 2010.
Mm-hmm.
You got a comment? Come on up, Gary, and we'll take any comments online too.
Gary Hudson, 30 seconds. I, like you and David, have the results of all those surveys somewhere back home. That would, I'm glad you put that in a spreadsheet, because that would make an excellent small table to put in the Friday Flash or in the magazine. There's so much confusion out there in the community. We heard it during the candidate forum on Monday night. They don't remember, they don't have access to the data, and they get it all mixed up. So make a little table, put it in the magazine, and educate all of us.
I could easily do that. I give total credit to Dury. She gave me all the information, expected me to put it together, which I did. We'll get somebody else to make it pretty and we'll put it in. I think that's a good idea.
Volunteer.
Oh, can I volunteer, Dury? We haven't given you lots of credit. Any last comments? And I don't think anything online. Okay. If that is that one, we're going to move on to CROA amenities inventory list. And I will start with turning it over to Susanna.
Yeah, that sounds good. Good evening. So I don't know if we're pulling up the inventory, but this was on last board agenda and got tabled. But as it was casually talked about before, I heard a couple comments, you know, what do the check marks mean? Is it really telling us anything? So when we revised it for this meeting, we did what I thought was more logical to people, which is X's is incomplete and checks would be complete. So what we're doing, and this is Brian and myself here, so if you didn't meet him last time, he's the new operations manager right there. And he really came in also just with the boots on the ground running. He's been working with the maintenance team, getting them, you know, being highly efficient out there, tackling the parks. I'm going to let him talk a little bit on what he's doing in a minute. But so with the task set by the board for an amenity inventory, we went to each facility first. And we walked it, we looked at the roof, we looked at from the top to the bottom, we looked in the bathrooms, each bathroom, we looked in each stall, we looked at the benches in the bathrooms, we looked at the landscaping, you know, the pool deck. And I'm not going to say that a resident out there isn't going to say, well, you missed this, because it's very possible. But we try to take a very comprehensive view, and you'll see that after the scorecard, we also have a list of the items, which may grow, may shrink. We kind of modeled this scorecard after the landscape scorecards, if any of y'all remember those from the past board reports. And so it has the same formula of looking at the facility. If there's a pool in that particular area, the pool deck, the bathrooms, the meeting rooms, and then it goes on to the landscape, pavilions, anything extra. So we started with all the facilities and we filled those out. You'll see those all done. And there's different tabs for South Village, for Spring Lake, for the Civic Corridor. I mean, they're all in there. And we have the inspection date. And then there's, you know, trying to get a big picture on a small piece of paper is tough. So you kind of got to shrink it down into the main items. And so that's what we did, kind of cleaning, maybe it's repairs, maybe it's painting, maybe it's, you know, miscellaneous. And then as the appendix afterwards, everything's kind of listed in more detail. So that's kind of showing how we've broken it up between each village. We started with facilities. We're going to move on to the parks. Brian is going to, we've done a few of the Yellowstone, but we're going to move on with that even more until we just get everything down and we have a plan for everything. So far, we have tackled some things. Brian and the maintenance crew have done a lot of pressure washing out there in the passive parks and some pool decks and some sidewalks. They've playgrounds. I think they've all been cleaned except for North Village now. We've also walked with Yellowstone. We've talked to Mallard Cleaning. And so what our approach was is that if you could, we have kind of our own spreadsheet behind the scenes too, is that if you could look at all the areas, all the facilities, and see the common things that have to be done, you can tackle those things at the same time and save money, right? Because you can find a vendor that does all those things at once and not have to come back out. For instance, we talked to Mallard Cleaning, who does a lot of cleaning for service areas. They're going to come out and clean all the facility buildings. So having them do it all at once, you get a better price. And same with landscaping. So we talked to Yellowstone and we said, okay, well, we give you a group, we go through these parks, you give us a quote for all the sod because you save money instead of having them come out in January, then have them come back in June and have them come back in August. So that's our strategy, is to kind of take everything and break it into categories to try to save money, to use one vendor for consistency, and work our way through. So you'll see some progress that we've done so far, and then you'll see that we still have more to go because it does take time. We go out, we spend the time to walk around, we take pictures of everything to document because we want to show before and after. We have someone in-house. It takes a lot of admin because we're updating the inventory as we go. So for instance, I think if you looked at the packet the last meeting, we added 3 parks, which I know have been kind of the hot ones lately, which were Green and Mosaic and Oscar maybe. Yeah. And then you'll also see a couple things tonight on the agenda. For instance, the Memorial Park, which needs some painting very badly. We have that on here to take care of. And maybe in the lane line reel, which is another one, which is one of the supplies at Lakeside. So you'll see us as we go. We'll show you as we make progress. We'll put it on the agenda if it requires something over 5,000 operating, or if it's from the reserves. But if it isn't, you're going to see it on the inventory, where we've gotten, what we've added. We'll show you the inspection date when we looked. We'll let you know if it's done with the check, and we'll write completed in the date. If it's not, it'll still have an X, and we'll put progress if we have it. Another interesting thing that we did too was on the reserve schedule from last year and this year, our replacement of the playgrounds at Spring Park and Long Meadow. I know there's a lot of residents that have been concerned about some of the things that are just declined over the years. We are an older community. Those playgrounds don't last forever, and they were on the schedule to be replaced. So Brian and I did meet with a playground representative, and he met with a second one, and we looked at different features and what can go, what's not being used as much anymore. What was interesting to me was, for instance, over at Spring Park, there's some structures that are really sound and they just need a paint job. So why remove them and spend the money to pull them out when some, like for instance, the swings, the bars, the metal bars, they're very good. They're not declining. Maybe you replace the chains on the swings, but you don't rip the whole thing out. So you save money that way by keeping some of the good structural pieces. But then we update it kind of in today's world where kids like to play, like maybe a rock structure, or, you know, Brian and I called it a merry-go-round, but there's a new word, it's the spinner, or whatever they're called nowadays. But some different things that kids like to do now that they didn't, you know, that they don't as much anymore back then. And so that's kind of, I'll be honest, I've done a lot of things at Town Hall over 10 years, and I'm pretty excited to do the playgrounds because it's interesting to see that evolve over years and what kids like to do and what's out there and how you can bring something to the community that they're going to be excited about. We went to one playground and father was there with his kids and he goes, please, oh, you're doing the playground? Is that what you're doing? Oh, thank you. And he was so excited about it. And for instance, the sandboxes, those got to go. We all know that those aren't really working for people except for the cats. So
Too much information.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I'd like Brian just to talk a little bit about what he's been doing with the maintenance crew, and also some extra things you've been doing as far as working towards the inventory that I'm not privy to, I'm sure.
Right.
Susanna, can I ask you a question before the,
Yeah.
on the thing? So it looks like you're going after the pools first, those.
Facilities.
What, the facilities?
Yeah.
Which I'm probably one of the few people on the board that actually looked at, this report is a carbon, exactly the same as what we've been getting for months, years. And I would always look at that and say, huh, everything is good. And I know that in 3 months, this much couldn't have deteriorated.
Sure.
So, again, kudos to, you folks that are running this ship now, that, you're actually going and looking at things and making notes of all the little details. So good on you for that. So you mentioned that you have a plan and a strategy. How are you gonna, there's a lot of, what do you have, 50 passive parks? Are you gonna go by village? Are you gonna go by your inquiries on Seltzer? How are you gonna determine the ones that you do, that's a priority? What's your thoughts on that?
I think the major parks, Long Meadow, Hippodrome, some of those big parks that are used the most. Obviously, we started with the ones that are active with playgrounds and areas like that are the ones to go to first. And then you also simultaneously take the ones that the residents have been vocalizing about, like Green Square, like Bark Park, like Oscar and some of the other ones, because obviously the residents have the eyes, they're out there, they're using them, they know what they see. And if they're not enjoying the areas that they live in because of the decline, then that they're going to bring that to our attention, and that's where we should go. There's some probably parks that people are like, that's fine with me. I just walk across and, my dog, and then we go. So, I think that taking the highlighted ones that are of concern to the residents and also the larger ones, and then slowly going through villages.
Well, before Gary raises his hand again and comes out and talks more, I think that would be a wonderful thing also to put out there to the community, that you're on top of this, here's where you're starting, this blah, 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 and kind of keep everybody up to date on where you are, what you've done, what has to be completed. If there's a delay, explain why there's a delay. We ordered, 150 umbrellas for all the parks to get that savings, but we can only get 60 right now. So, we're going to take the ones that look decent, replace the ones that are broken here, but, over the next 2 months, you will see new, stuff like that, just so the community knows what's going on.
We could do an inventory update, and Lauren had actually brought that to my attention today, that on CROA, there's a way to kind of broadcast where you're going. And so
some way where people can, like Gary says, visually see it.
Right.
We don't have to look for it too hard. The other thing, because I'm nosy, I wanted to see what all the talk was about Central Bark. So Thelma and Louise went to Central Bark the other day. And the first thing that struck me is there's no grass there anymore. It's pretty much dirt.
Right.
So my question was, are we paying somebody to mow this dirt?
No, there's no mowing of dirt. So,
but that's part of the landscaping. They're supposed to be mowing the passive parks. So in essence, we're paying them for something that they're not doing because there's no grass to mow.
Right. And so I saw some pictures of that. And so the question becomes, did the grass decline or is there something wrong with the grass? Or it looked really, really shady over there. Can grass even grow? And if it's not, then, you're going to have to put an alternative kind of ground cover there like jasmine. Or you go to something like Deer Woods Park, where it's all pine straw, and it's more of the kind of this natural kind of area that doesn't need mowing at all. It's more of a replace the pine straw or do weed treatment.
There's also a huge, if you stand back and look, there's a huge dip in it.
Kind of some soil erosion, right?
Yeah. So you'd almost need to bring some black dirt or whatever you have to do here and level it off and stuff like that. So
I'm going to move us along.
All right. You're always cutting me off.
I'm sorry, but
okay, go ahead.
Anything else?
Was there anything you wanted to add real quick?
Yes,
go ahead.
Just to give you a little heads up, we are having Yellowstone actually work out a proposal for Central Bark. That's something that they're working on. Also for the dog park over the gated dog park, because there seems to be a huge problem there also with flooding. Seems like the irrigation was for an old design of landscaping and not for the current design. So there's a lot of pooling of water that's happening that shouldn't be happening. But when it comes to pressure washing, we've been hitting all the parks. We only have 2 playgrounds right now that are pending over in North Village. We're hoping to hit those tomorrow, possibly, if all goes well, as far as weather. And other than that, there's a lot going on. We just ask that you guys bear with us. We are definitely working a lot behind the scenes. A lot of resodding needs to happen. Green Square, we've looked at, it's horrible. We understand that. Just know that it's not going unnoticed. We're working on that. Also, it looks like there was some corners cut when it was resodded previously.
No.
Yes. So we're seeing these things. We're digging up a lot of stuff, and we're trying to avoid this moving forward. We're trying to make sure that we do things correctly and moving forward.
All right. I just want to add a quick thing about shuttle service. I know some people have said, well, what's going on with cell service? There's some tickets that have been sitting around, what's happened. And so during the transition, when we lost some staff, some of the cell service kind of fell through the cracks too. So Brian's been trying to catch up on those. And so until we see them, we can't send them anywhere else. And if they happen to be a CDD item, it goes to CDD. But if we're just kind of catching up on our end, trying to look at them all, that has caused a backlog. So we're working on that and trying to get through everything bit by bit.
First, real quick, just for you, this is the first time I've seen you almost seem very calm and passionate about something that you're working on, and I love seeing that. So thank you guys, all of you back there, Lauren, because I've seen the stress kind of come off of you. So thank you on that. Yeah. Just a couple things when you do run through that list, just always keep in mind the repair and the replacement for anything that could be a liability. There are a couple things that I did see on there that I'm not going to say out loud that could actually cause us headaches down the road if we don't get on them sooner. I'm sure you're already working on it, but just to make sure we get that. But and then just for the sake of the community, to keep in mind that, and this is what I've always said in operations, I had 2,500 rooms essentially that I was taking care of for a while, for hotel accommodation, if you will. Once the place almost looks perfect, you are always going to find something. Always.
Yeah.
And you will pick out little details that are an issue more when it's perfect than it is when everything is a mess. And don't go crazy when the community starts flipping out over this one little thing, that little thing, because that's what you want to hear. That means the rest is perfect. So it's going to happen in our community. It's going to happen, especially because you have more eyes on you right now. But that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing.
Also, a quick update on the basketball court, if anybody wants it.
Oh, yeah.
So when we initially put out the action items for the repair of the post and then the resurfacing and repainting, we had enlisted like 4 different companies and couldn't get anyone to commit or do the work. Some of them said it was too small. Some people just said we don't have the staffing, whatever. We finally found somebody, and we've been on the waiting list for a while. And so I checked recently and they said March 2nd. So, but honestly, I don't know, and we're hopeful. I know Brian's been trying to get a hold of some more companies to try to get this done, but it's not for lack of trying. There's just not a lot of vendors out there that are responding on this work, and the one that we are in line for is taking a while.
Okay, I'm cutting you off. It's 7:15. It's 7:15. We got a hell of a lot more to go. I'm being dictated. The tyrant is actually the word. Jackson, legal briefing. Anything?
Yeah. So one thing I want to point out for the community, we do legal briefings every week. The board gets those updates. They're privileged conversations. However, I do want to say that we had a couple of properties that were commercial properties that we thought had not paid their assessments to CROA last year. It turns out one of them paid the assessments, but wrote the checks to CANOA, not CROA. When we discovered that, finally, Ariel jumped in and he got the funds transferred into CROA's account. So that's good news. The second property still has not paid their assessments. We are in conversation with them. I'll just remind the board that our resolution last board meeting was that as of February 1st, the residents in that property would lose their CROA assets. We have reminded that property manager of that. And I'm hopeful that as we get to the end of January, that they will take the necessary steps. It is a significant amount of money that's still owed, and I'm hopeful that we'll be able to resolve that. Everything else was in your email, I think.
Can you help me to remind me, in the last meeting, did you say publicly the names of those entities?
We did not. We were required under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. We could identify the
legal name of
the legal entity.
Name.
Yeah, but not the
What was
actual.
that legal name said last meeting?
It was.
And just for clarification, to confirm the one that did pay without the right name, perhaps it might be nice to put that publicly.
Sure.
That they did supply that check.
Sure. I just have to find the actual language from the previous meeting, and if I've got that, I will definitely tell you. It was, okay. So it is the residents and guests of Astoria DST 688 Celebration Boulevard that we are still waiting.
That we're chasing.
Thank you. And the other entities did supply a check. Perfect.
Election. Let's talk about that.
Well, as you know, we held a candidate forum on Monday. It went pretty well. We had probably about 20 to 30 people in the room and another 25 or so online, not including the candidates.
We're actually 45 in the room, I count.
Oh, 45? Okay, well, more than I thought. So we've completed that. The ballots are going, the ballots will be mailed out tomorrow. The printer just notified us of that today.
We have had a couple people drop out, right?
We have had 2 people drop out, Joanna and Tim. The rest of the candidates are still on, even the gentleman who did not participate in the forum.
And for the sake of the board, to reprint the ballots would cost $1,300. I think I wouldn't do it myself unless somebody board member
And
wants.
historically, we haven't. After somebody is dropped off, they're dropped off.
Well, there
was
was an instance where somebody did at the very last minute. So what we asked them to do was just take a little, like a fourth of a sheet of paper and say, please note that so-and-so is no longer in the ballot, and just stuff that behind. So I don't know if you want to do that, but
They've already been stuffed and.
well,
ready
this
to
is
go.
a second stuff.
So let me ask, are both of those names, Tim and Joanna, on the paper ballot?
Tim's name was able to be removed before because he notified us the day after the forum that he was withdrawing. The other individual notified us this afternoon that she was withdrawing, so we were already printing and stuffing at that point.
And just to be clear, if someone votes for that candidate, it does not invalidate their entire ballot. It only invalidates that one vote.
That's my understanding.
I'd hate to have you stole the election comment.
How about the process itself, running the election night and all that type of stuff? Are we in good shape?
Yes, we met with Debbie Jackson. She has graciously volunteered to be the new poll master. So she will be running the polling and the vote counting.
And I know that Cindy
is our board
Cindy had talked
liaison, yes.
to me that she'd like to be the board liaison, and we've had them in the past, so Cindy is working with the group in some manner, I know, and we've got that. So,
Thank you, Debbie.
is there anything else on the election that anybody has? Oh, I forgot to give the answer on Natalie Holmes, so we.
Oh,
the answer's in here. We have it in the email.
Oh, do we? What was it? I didn't see that email yet.
Read it. I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it.
The short answer, can I do a short answer? I'll try a short answer, is that under the revised charter, of course, we got Gary sitting here. Under the revised charter, a developer cannot elect a majority of the board. When there are 3 seats available in an election, the developer would only be able to cast their votes for 1 because it's a majority of those people running in that particular election. So what Tom has offered to do is to draft a letter to Mattamy, reminding them of those particular restrictions and rules. There's no indication whether they would vote or not to begin with. So it's really just prophylactic to say, here are the requirements, and then they could choose to cast their ballots. And I'm not even sure, I don't know if anyone knows how many ballots they would be entitled to cast right now.
Wouldn't it be based on the platted homes?
It is. It
On
is.
which they are already paying dues?
Correct.
And the platted homes that have not sold, because some have sold.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if
So
I
it's
remember,
54 minus.
54 have been planted, some have been sold, so it is not a big number.
It's not
They
a big
also
number.
haven't paid for
Right.
the ones
There's
that are platted, so it's,
There's that.
it's not happening this.
Yeah.
this-
I think it's a non-issue.
not
to be
happening
honest.
this-
Okay,
this
thank you. Election, all good? Perfect. Okay, discussion of, do we want to talk about CROA providing insurance for non-CROA events, or can we pass that to a next meeting?
I'd be happy to.
We have a lot more in a short time.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, so we'll pass. Number 5, discussion of the Island Village amenity list. Do we have a time pressure there?
I don't know.
They might be on the meeting. Let's see.
Casey Lothar with Mattamy Homes is on.
Hello, Casey.
Hey, how's
Can
it
you
going?
give us, so basically here, what we're talking about, I don't know how much space we're talking about, but we were talking about certain amenities that we might have capacity for at Island Village. And maybe, Susanna, you could take the lead there, or Lauren, in just having the conversation, because I know you guys were doing a little homework there.
So we reached out to Mattamy, and because they were asking about amenities, and we asked, could we supply a wish list of things that we know residents want or are in high demand here? And they said they would be willing to listen to a wish list, but within their space and monetary confinement. So if we know of specific amenities that the community as a whole might be able to use or benefit from, then we can give them that list, I believe.
This is in addition to any park or anything like that that's going to be there, or?
Casey can speak to that.
Yeah, so we have our regular open space tracks, parks type deal, but this is the second amenity center in phase 2, which will actually be a building and a pool, and then a playground. And if there's any other items that you guys would like to see, or different types of equipment versus what we normally put in, stuff like that, fitness center, that kind of thing.
What kind of a time frame do you need a response in, Casey?
We're starting the conceptual planning now, so if your wish list is anything big ticket items or large spaces, within the next couple weeks would be nice.
Have we shared our previous plans with Mattamy?
Not that I know of.
Any community surveys or anything like that?
I don't know, but I'm thinking out loud. Basketball court, a tennis court, a community garden. I mean, this is a chance to hit a few items that would be of value. So, I mean, maybe we can empower Susanna and Lauren to study the previous list and come up with some items that we know the community cares about. I mean, if we can put a basketball court, I'm looking over here at some people, but if we can put a basketball court down there, if we could put a community garden down there, it would be some stuff that is different that would really help solve some problems. So maybe if you reached out with a couple of people over there from a recreation or especially recreation committee really type thing, and we help fill it in a little and then coordinated between them and Casey and you and came back to the board and said, this is what the group is thinking, I would love that. Are we good with that approach? We have a thumbs up. Fair enough?
That's a great approach.
So Casey, we are all over that and we will make it a 2-week priority. Lauren and Susanna working with Dury, the other people, get back to you. Fair enough, board?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We appreciate you. Okay, let's talk about K-8 contract renewal. And let me start this one off here in a second.
Oh, I'm looking for something. Give me 1 second. Old age, the lack of glasses is killing me. So I'm looking through the page. Okay, so we have had a contract with the school system that goes all the way back to 2003. And it has had updates a couple, 3 times during that period. We have stuff that we utilize, stuff we don't utilize. And if you talk about something like the tennis courts, for example, let me just provide a little history there. Actually, on January 5th of 2020.
You're talking about the school tennis courts.
I'm talking about the school tennis courts, right over here by the K-8 school. In January of 2020, myself, Mike Jackson, I was the president then, and Steve Waring visited there. We met with the school board officials. We walked the tennis courts, and we looked at them from the perspective of, could we use them? Could we buy them? Or could we set up a better partnership to do it? We met with some of the senior people, most senior people from Osceola School Board. They conceptually thought the idea might make sense. Access was going to be a big problem. They actually confirmed for us that, we were not going to have access during the school day when there's after school stuff and stuff like that. And it's also in the school contract. We had a board meeting on January 21st or 20th of 2020, and the board agreed at that meeting about the prioritization I talked about earlier. And we also agreed that we would tell the school system we were not interested in a partnership there because we were not going to be able to have access and we needed a better solution for any amenity. We told them we would be interested in purchasing the properties. They actually told us that they would not sell the property to us. So, that kind of took us to the period of this summer because the contract with the school system actually runs out in 2022, June 30, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. And what happens then is that we have to decide if we're going to stay with it or not stay with it. Jackson and Celia, if I remember right, met with them and had a meeting. And then I had a follow-up meeting with Terry Castillo, who's the school board member, in I think it was January of this year, if I remember right. And they were really interested in having us spend money as CROA to fix things up. And that kind of leads us to the questions here that we're going to be talking about. The different kinds of things where they were interested in, for instance, they'd love to have a track. And they're estimated a 6-lane running track, and that would cost $682,000. The tennis court conversion would cost about $148,000, which is pretty close to what we had before. Maybe they could be converted to basketball, mini pitch. They talked about pickleball, but I don't think their kids play pickleball. Maybe they do. I don't know. They wanted community access gates from the sidewalks, which would be $14,000. They talked about a handball court, which was $10,000, expanding the baseball field for $148,000, fixing the existing park. The contract is very one-sided contract. It gives us basically no rights. I told Terry that I didn't think that contract would work. She agreed that contract wouldn't work. We'd have to completely redo it. There are things in that contract now that we don't use at all. She wanted us as a CROA to come back in February of this year, by the end of February, and say, all right, what do we want to do with the school system? And really, that is the genesis of the conversation that we need to have. Access is not going to change. It's not even inside their control. It is the reality of Florida and state law and everything. Really, when we put this on the agenda, how do we want to proceed with the assessment of the potential renewal? Should this even be a CROA contract? Or should it be somebody else? Maybe each one could do it themselves. Are we as a board willing to spend CROA money to fix up the K-8 school is a question.
I know you totaled that up. What did it come to?
Their wish list,
Over $1 million?
Over $1 million.
over $1 million.
And they didn't expect us to do everything there. You know, and then if you do it there, what about these K through 5 is going to be an island village? What about the high school? This contract requires that if we put something in, we have to maintain it. We have to have reserves. What we learned with the light poles that we put in to be nice people is then we had to pay to fix all the lights. It cost us, I'm thinking if I remember, it cost us $14,000 to fix all the lights and everything this spring for baseball season. So when we do these things that are nice in this process, we then set ourselves up for long-term liability. So, and I know some people are going to say online, you know, this is a school, you gotta do whatever you gotta do, but it's, you know, these are real decisions that matter. And they're looking at us, are we going to help or not? And, you know, we used the field right here in front of the ball field. Kids use the playground, but you know, they use other fields and they have contracts there. Could they contract? That's the decision we have to talk about, or at least think about how we want to attack as a board.
So I know that you guys were looking at possibly if this exists with other schools in the county, and I don't think it did. I think we're special in the aspect that just like the rest of Osceola County, all the money comes out of here and it goes elsewhere, and we get the short end of the stick as per usual. But the reality is that it is for a majority of the people in our community. Have we considered looking into how we can go ahead and make this a CCS expense and actually take advantage of something for good reasons? See if we can go ahead and get grants from the state to go ahead and put that money back into the schools here, since our school district is going to do it themselves before it comes out of the community pocket 100%. Because that might be the path we got to take, and then say, fine, Osceola County, we're going to go ahead, we're going to do it, we're going to do it better, and you can go ahead and answer to the rest of the county why their schools don't look as good as ours.
You know, I think that's an interesting concept. I'd like to just take a really quick history detour of how we got here.
Right.
In the first days of Celebration, the Celebration Company had to negotiate with the Osceola County School District to do a very different kind of school. And in the process of doing that, they made agreements to add enhancements to the school property. These were enhancements that didn't exist anywhere else in the county schools by far. And in doing that, they put a lot of money in to create not only educational facilities, but recreational facilities, which now represents what we call the KA sort of outside fields. After a period of about 3 or 4 years, the Celebration Company then transferred those assets and the liabilities with them to the Celebration Company controlled HOA to get them off TCC's books and put them on the HOA's books, remembering that the HOA was controlled by the Celebration Company. So it was an accounting move, made sense. It's not an uncommon thing to do. At that time, I was the chairman of the Citizens Oversight Committee, which actually Greg Filak today from Celebration has that same position. And in that position, we negotiated with the school district to get Celebration Company to pay for a lot of things. Well, fast forward to today, the Celebration Company isn't paying for those things any longer, but the Osceola County School District has gotten used to the money coming from this community to pay for those resources. I love seeing kids playing flag football out on that field. I love seeing Little League baseball on the baseball fields. But I can tell you that in St. Cloud and Kissimmee and Poinciana, all of those organizations contract directly with the school district to rent the facilities. They don't go through the Poinciana Homeowners Association or the St. Cloud Homeowners Association. None of those things are happening. So as Kevin says, we're taking the short end of the stick again. Having said that, it seems to me that this particular contract, the way it's written and the way it's designed, is a non-starter. I'm absolutely unalterably opposed to it. If there's a solution that allows us to move some money, great. But there's no reason that these organizations that we've got couldn't negotiate directly with the school district. There's no value add to CROA being involved in the transaction. There's nothing that we give them.
Can you just clarify what kind of organization you're specifically
Little League
about?
baseball, for example. I mean, Little League shouldn't have to contract with CROA because we are the provider of that resource, the baseball field. In St. Cloud, Little League contracts with St. Cloud High School for their baseball field. I mean, it's not an unusual structure. And we all pay Osceola County property taxes and school taxes. I would like the school district to start putting some of those school dollars and taxes back into the schools here in Celebration. And I can tell you that for 25 years, they haven't, because they haven't had to.
Yeah. That history is helpful. One starting point for me is how much are our homeowners paying right now for those fields, that access?
Meaning through
Is it
CROA?
100? Is it 100 grand a year? Is it 150? Is it 200?
Under the contract?
Yeah. How much are we paying?
Well, we're paying for all the maintenance.
Right.
We're
So
paying,
what is that?
Yeah.
And maybe there's not an
We
answer.
don't have the answer.
Okay, we don't have the answer today. Okay, so then the large question for me is, what is it that we want? What are our guiding principles as we think about a new contract, whether there would be one or not? One guiding principle is, for me, is it's nice to have a good relationship with the schools. Another guiding principle is to not be taken advantage of. Another guiding principle is, for me, is HOA dollars paid by our residents should be for HOA facilities for our residents. We should be paying for our facilities, not someone else's. I don't want to put our HOA dollars for someone else's initiative or someone else's product. So take us out of that role. Our money should go, in my view, to our residents. Yes, majority of the kids in K-8 are residents, but that can be, we're already paying that through the school system. So let these other initiatives stand on their own. And the further issue is, a guiding principle is access. I mean, there's so many conditions under access that it, again, makes it a non-starter.
Can we, so,
yeah.
I want to follow back to David's point and somewhat Jackson's point real quick. And I'm going to just use the same situation, but use a different example. We can look at action 10 for tonight, which is going to be an item for fireworks to be approved for and paid for by CROA, by the residents here. What is different in your mentality right now with the way you're looking at it from that for one night events for the people that are HOA dollars and the people here in this community that also welcome those from outside, compared to money to assist, and the dollar figure is clearly different, but to assist those families, at least 80% of them that go to the schools here, the dollar figure to keep their fields playing?
Well, as we get to that action item, I do not support CROA dollars going for fireworks.
That's fair. But I'm just using that as an example of how CROA dollars are actually still going for those people
for
that are here.
For 20 minutes at 20 grand or 30 grand, no.
And that's just an example of just one that's
but
real right now.
It's for our larger resident population.
Yeah.
One primary difference is that this contract is an ongoing obligation for maintenance beyond just the wish list that they've given us for upgrades and things that they want done. And so I don't think it's our obligation to maintain those fields simply because the Celebration Company built them 25 years ago.
Right.
And so to me, that's an ongoing obligation. Fireworks is a one-time event. You decide yes or no. We'll make that decision tonight. I think it's a false dichotomy. There is literally a source of funding for the fields that comes from the Osceola County School District, paid for by the residents. And I think that that is the proper place for it. Now, you can argue that there is a proper place for the funding of fireworks, but I don't think those two decisions should be conflated. I think one talks about a long-term issue that has significant impact. The other is a relatively short-term and much smaller dollar amount. So that to me is the difference. And I'm glad to debate that when we get there.
Can I make a suggestion? Can we start by having management tell us what we actually used today? So, because if we, and this is going to be an incorrect statement, but let me just simplify. Let's say that we use the ball field and where they play flag football in front. That's the only two things we use. You know, then we can sit there and we can have a much simpler contract, and we could sit there and answer David's question. What's it take to take care of the stuff in front of the baseball field? But if Celebration kids use it year round, which they do, we should pay for that, and we cut a deal with the school to take care of that. And it'll look nicer. It's got benefits for all of us. On the baseball field, we know we have to take care of the lights and stuff like that. But and then if we were going to add an item, then we need something for it.
Yeah, and the sub question of yours is, like if it's baseball fields, how much of that is organized versus pickup? Because organized is different. That's an organization. If it's pickup, that's just residents showing up.
Well, in my opinion, I agree with Jackson on the baseball because we don't have access to the baseball unless it's organized. So probably they ought to cut a deal with them. But on front of it, we know it's unorganized and we know it's a ton of our residents. So I think we should take care of the grass and everything in there and make it really nice and playable for residents. But if we're not doing anything else, we got access to the gymnasium. But if no one uses the gymnasium, we should just get rid of that. We've got access to the tennis courts. They're a joke and we don't have, I mean, haven't been playable forever and we have no access. So I'd like to, if we're going to spend our money, I want to spend our money somewhere where our residents can have access.
Somebody's raising their hand.
Come on up, sir. We'll need your name and address and then your comment, please.
My name is Tor Kraft. My address is 602 Medina Place. I actually live right across the street, and I came to the town 3 years ago, but I visited in '98 and fell in love with it, and it ultimately led me to decide to come and live here. And since I've been here, I have been coaching and helping the kids in this community be active, be outside, and we have utilized those fields.
The baseball field?
The baseball fields and the football field and the grass part out nonstop. Our board, and that's our board president over there for the Little League, all we have is a whole bunch of residents that care about these kids that live in this town. We want to give them the best opportunity to enjoy being outside, being teammates, and being able to utilize these fields.
So can I ask you a question, just so I it's clear here? So we're talking about in front of the field here along this road right out here where we play the flag football and stuff out there.
We're talking about that, plus the baseball fields, both of them.
So between Celebration Avenue and the parking lot to start with.
There's two baseball
There's
fields.
two fields. There's the gym, which is just behind us over here. And then there's a baseball field that's just behind it toward the track. Or the football field or the whatever soccer field that's out there. And then the one that's, I guess we call it field one, but there are the two on either side of the parking lot where you got all the basketball hoops in between. And this fall, just so you guys are aware, we had 183 kids, 185 kids play this fall. And using those fields, twice a night, every night. 185 children that were able to utilize those fields. And these fields are actually only able to be used by the younger ages, up to 12. Once we go beyond 12, and our league, and these are all volunteer folks that are part of Little League. There is no one paid. We 100% are just parents and coaches that are trying to provide for the kids of this town. Once they get to 12, though, we can't use anything that this town provides any longer. Once we brought those fences in and put those lights up, now that did the distance from the bases becomes unusable for the older ones. We are forced to go to South Orange and pay to use their fields. And so our kids and our parents every night when it's time to go to practice have to drive to South Orange field and back for every game, for everything. I've been working very closely with the high school, attempting to get a cooperation with the high school so we can start utilizing our field, actually having home games in our town.
So if I could just ask, is there anything that would prohibit you from dealing directly with the K-8, just like you're dealing with the high school, and still having access to the fields?
Well, I think we're all aware of the difficulty when dealing with an entity like county entity, and as far as dealing with, hey, can you spend money and put it here? We're gonna struggle with that. And what is it? It's me as a dad, him as a dad. We're going and trying to get the county to actually follow through with something. So what did we do? Well, before fall, we had a bunch of volunteers go out there. We were painting fences. We were changing out bases. We were working on the field. It was grassroots, we going out using our money.
I was on the group that built the first set of dugouts. I'm with you, brother.
Right.
I'm just asking, what would be different about this than what every other little league in Osceola County does, which is to go to their local school and have the agreement? I'm not aware of another school anywhere in which there's a homeowners association that steps in as the interim. And what is it that you think that the HOA does for you in this situation that you wouldn't be able to do for yourselves? In other words, I don't think the school district's going to kick you off the ball fields if we don't have this contract. So what is it that you see us doing? What's the difference?
Well,
if I can ask.
What I would say is that the condition of the fields are continually degrading. Okay. Everything that we are having to do is to maintain what is. Okay?
So you'd like to see, I'm just clarifying, you'd like to see CROA, the HOA, pay money to upgrade those fields?
Well, as a homeowner, as a resident, I would like our kids to have the facilities necessary. Now, if the contract and whatever's going on with the school is too difficult, then we should provide, I would think, as a community, this amount of kids. And this is, I think, a small amount of kids compared to what, then provide it to us somewhere else. If that's the issue, if we're debating on, we don't want to deal with the school because that is too sticky and it's too difficult, then give us something else. We always looking at the field that's behind the circle pool, and I'm sorry, I don't remember all the names of everything, but you know, I have birthday parties with my kids out there. I mean, it's a huge giant field, a tiny little, baseball backstop. And we were able to, there's a spot. Well, if we're not going to, and we want to say, no school, we're going to get mired in that, then let's build our own facilities like the soccer or like the other facilities that's down the way, the dog park.
You're talking about East Village, aren't you? When you say the circle pool, East Village? You go down past the Albany State.
I appreciate it.
I mean, if we're looking,
Okay,
I appreciate it.
so that actually helps. Can we have management work with him, the gentleman up there, and actually put us together a good map of, because this is bringing back memories. We use these two fields, we use this field, this is how many kids are doing it. So we're sitting here with the facts. So in other words, I don't mind us talking to the school system, but here's what we really care about. We care about these two baseball fields. We care about this. Why don't we throw in something that says, and as part of us helping maintain this, you got to give us access to the high school. We should do something for the residents, but we should do something that is very specific, that serves a value, that keeps our costs reasonable, but then does that. Is that an unfair statement the way I said it?
No. I'll follow up with it because, I mean, what this sounds like, you mentioned 185 kids. We have different partner programs that are going on right now. We had soccer fields. Soccer did play on the field that you talked about, and guess what this community did? They built fields for them to go ahead and play on. We're talking about groups of pickleball. We're finding locations that might be a possibility. The purpose of the school agreement is not to make the school happy. It's to make our residents happy and provide them something with the land that we have available. This is the alternative to building a field.
Right, and I don't think we have space to build a field. So if we can solve the solution here, say it is for this targeted group of children, it's going to cost X. And for us to maintain this school, you've got to give us access to the high school ball field for this. Then we're doing something for the community. Is that fair? So then if we can, you got Lauren and Susanna there, the gentleman up there, and you, if you can reach out to them so that we could get a very good description of what fields we're talking about, how many kids and everything like that. So we've got the facts. Is that fair?
By the way, that's Alec up there, the former ARC chair.
Oh, is that you, Alec?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just go ahead and put the face here.
So he's going to know how to draw this, is what you're telling me.
So once we have the facts, then we can decide how to proceed.
Yes.
So there may be a contract with the schools, there may not be a contract because it may not be viable.
We'll figure that out. So
we'll figure that out.
For the next board meeting, which is February 9th, we need drawings done so that we have the facts of how many kids, what we're talking about for the fields, and what you would find, if you talked about the high school, what you would find there, so we could actually start a conversation with Terry and that and say, this is what we're talking about. Is that fair?
100%, and we're about to have opening day, and we would love all of you to come out and see the kids and the things that we got planned for them, all just volunteer families getting together to try to put on a great show and fun for the kids. Please come out and see what the kids are like. And what's the date again, Alex? I don't remember.
February 26th.
February 26th.
Thank you for
Brian, before tour leaves, Can I be the board liaison to help them since grandma is so involved with Little League?
I don't care. Anybody want to protest?
No. So
You are.
I've been
No,
only
I
for
understand why
grandma. I've been only begging for this for
Okay, you
years.
got it,
Thank
you got it.
So as part of this, can we also find out what the current costs are? So we know the scope?
Yeah.
Are we talking about 10 grand a year, 10,000, I mean, 100,000, 200, 300?
It's less than what the fields cost already.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's get the facts. That's what we need, please. Okay, thank you, sir.
If I may, can I just have?
Take it away, Alex.
No, and thank you guys. I know I've sat in the seat that you guys are in another community, and ironically, I've worked with Roger. Roger, I haven't seen you in a long time, so good to see you. But I think just important about the Celebration Little League, right? It was falling down, right? COVID wasn't kind to us, and we picked it up in the fall. We had, like Tor said, 185 kids. And we had 13 sponsors. So I appreciate the conversation. There's a solution there somewhere as we partner together. And we've got community investment that we can have those discussions about. And then one other just highlighted note, as Tor mentioned, we are 100% volunteer. And one of our biggest interests is to involve other community organizations in our events. And so for our opening day, we're bringing in the Cub Scouts to raise the flag. We're bringing in the Veterans Club to throw out the first pitch. We're trying to do all these things so that it is community. So while these might be K-8 schools, K-8 fields, it's our community that is going to come out and support them. So it'll be very interesting to see the investment. I think once we get them to a level, it will not be a significant spend, and then we'll be able to partner together and work as a team.
And I think what we were trying to do was find a place where we're actually targeted towards residents and it made sense what we were doing, and this conversation itself with that. So I thank you both. Okay, moving right along. Action item number 9. We have a motion to approve the proposal to provide an updated 2022 reserve study by reserve advisors in the amount of $24,800 with additional options as needed. It's an operating expenditure. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Susanna, lead us in the conversation, please.
This is the reserve study that CROA has done every 3 years. The last one was 2019. So the goal, because, the board and the community have been looking at our facilities and our service areas, was to get that rolling kind of early this year and possibly take a closer look at service areas, especially it's been mentioned in previous meetings, the buildings. So there is an optional addition on here for looking at the service areas more specifically, but this is the reserve study that covers facilities, the parks. It covers things like benches, it covers AC handlers, it just goes through everything that's a replacement. It goes through the playgrounds that we're going to be doing. And it's on every 3 years. The engineers come out, they spend a week on site. They spend all day here going to everywhere, inspecting, seeing, they estimate the life of things. They also they determined how much they estimate it's going to cost to replace, how long it's going to last, and put a schedule together so that the association can have a reasonable plan on replacing amenities over time. So, and also the funding that it takes to provide that money.
So one of the things I did I'm going to talk about the $15,000 item because I think it's interesting conceptually as we've had our lawsuits and everything. But I told Susanna, what we've never had before is a presentation to the board of the results of the study. I want an actual presentation to the board, and I want a real focus on inflation, because it's one thing to sit there and say, if nothing changed, our liability is going to go up, I fear, substantially, just because pick your inflation number that you guys want to use. And so we need a real conversation about, is it something that's going to stay up for 30 years? Is it going to go up and then come back down? I don't want just, and I've studied the old one in detail, as you know, and it was pretty cookie cutter. Inflation was going to be 1%. Well, that's not the world we live in today. So I think there's we need a presentation, and we need to really challenge several assumptions that are important in this.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to this service area because I raised the original question. I've been sort of the point person on some of this litigation, and I'm just not comfortable with our service area understanding. We're asking executive committees to make budget decisions, and I think that they're working off of the generalized reserve study that we have, which is helpful to a point. But some of our service areas are now 25 years old, some are 15 years old, and there's a big difference. And if I understand this, it's 15,000 in the aggregate to look at all of the service area buildings. I know that's a lot of money compared to the overall contract, but service areas represent a substantial portion of our properties in this community. I think they represent a disproportionate amount of where we're going to have some concerns going forward. And I would like to have that study that's presented really allow us to tell the executive committees in these service areas, here's what we see in replacement reserves in your community, and here's what that's going to take from a budget standpoint. And I think when we aggregate that and we just say overall the community has got this, we're not really giving the best information.
You got to remember that 15,000 is spread over several service areas, so it's going to be a little more than 1,000 apiece. So, it's, or we could argue about how many units and how you pay for it or something like that. But
I would like to clarify though that they had said that it's the ground level up, so they don't get on the roof and do any kind of roof assessment.
they must have a drone or something.
They said they don't do. They said they recommend you get a roofing engineer to look at it.
Fine.
I'm sure they're.
So I don't know if the motion was just for the original 24,800.
It was.
I would ask that we amend the motion to add the service area options.
And with that amendment, where that extra 15 gets allocated, does it get allocated to the service areas or does it go to the residents as a whole?
I think it gets allocated to the service area.
And that's what I would amend the motion to read. So the 15 grand gets allocated to the 14 service areas.
So out of their reserve spending.
And just second was who?
I don't.
I'll
Well, I made the
second it, but
motion.
just need a
I made the motion.
I'll second it. I just need clarification. Is that, so South Village is going to have more service areas than Charleston as an example. Is it per unit? So that price is divided per unit, or is it per association?
I think that would be up to the association to
It
divide
should
that up
not
per
be.
unit.
In other words, it shouldn't be divided by 14. I mean,
Correct. That's what I'm trying to
service area with
make
6
sure.
units versus one.
Yeah,
But
it should be by
should
unit.
With 50,
the
divided by
count.
unit. By
I think
unit.
it should be
As long as
the
we're on the same
unit
page on that.
count,
Prorated.
prorated.
Right.
Any other board conversation? Cindy?
I'd like to ask Susanna, under the CROA amenities, I noticed that it says like Spring Park Pool House, East Village Pool House, but when you get down to Spring Lake, it just says amenity center. Did they miss the pool?
If they did, then it's in, they'll do everything that's in the reserve study now, and that's in there, so they just, it's probably just admin.
And the athletic complex, that's the building and the fields?
At the
Yes, that's
board.
everything out there. That was
We
the question.
discussed that with them.
There's a question online, will the proposals include pickleball and croquet? The actual answer to that is no, just like it is not going to include
They don't exist. They don't exist.
because they don't exist. So the reason you do one every 3 years is so you catch up and something brand new really doesn't happen, but then you are going to catch it there over the 30-year type period. So that's how that works. Any other board conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item number 10, motion to approve the contract for the 2022 4th of July fireworks with Garden State Fireworks Incorporated.
So moved.
Second? I'll second it. Okay, any conversation?
Well, we've already had some pre-conversation. What we're really trying to do here, in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, in the past, what we've done is we've gone out for the 4th of July to Lexington and said, Lexington, you contract with the fireworks provider and we'll have a memorandum of understanding, and then you'll pay for it and we'll do some credits and back and forth. And COVID came up and there was some disagreement about who had to pay, and there was some cancellation fees and so on. So this time we thought, why not do it the way we've done Founder's Day and other events, which is that we contract, and I said through CROA, maybe it's through CCS, maybe it's through the Kevin Kirby Memorial Fund, whatever it might be, but in some places.
The hitman's off of me. I'm not in town
Oh,
center
you're good?
anymore.
Okay.
I'm good.
So we pay for it, or to contract for it. And then we go to sponsors and we get it sponsored. And I think we have a rough understanding that we have enough sponsorship that it will actually pay for itself through these sponsors.
Do we have a
But we write the
understanding that Lexington is going to sponsor?
Do we have what?
Do we have an understanding that Lexington is going to provide sponsorship?
I've had discussions with them. They said that they would be willing to. There is nothing formal.
That's what we need.
I would actually like this, I would like the Lexington sponsorship to be in place so that we, in other words, maybe we amend this motion to say that it's approved, subject to the receipt of the Lexington sponsorship.
Yeah.
I'm asking the question, but I mean, because we'll do a lot of other things. There'll be a big benefit to downtown. Obviously, it's a wonderful event. Get other sponsors. We're going to do other things. I assume, JR, you're talking about bands and all the normal junk that we talk about and stuff like that. So there is going to be CROA expense already. Is that a concept that people would be comfortable with?
I mean, Jackson and I talked about this a couple of times. I mean, I personally think that it should go under CCS first, so we can figure that part out. But yes, it was to run it the same that we ran Founders Day, which I think came off fantastic. And the reason why that went so well is because we did have 100% control. And if this individual wants to sponsor this specific item, that's fine. But it's part of that is covering the full expense. Because in prior years, this sponsor has always turned around and said, here's your 29,000, but the fireworks would actually cost about 35 after you throw on the safety watch for the fire or this, that, the other. So if they want to go ahead and have their name presented, you know, fireworks presented by, that's fine. Cover 100% of the cost of the fireworks. Otherwise, you're just a sponsor as part of the event.
Okay. I have no problem with any of that. I like CROA having the contract and getting reimbursed from CCS. I think that can perfectly well happen because it's that thing that benefits the community. I mean, we should ask the legal question of lawyer to make sure there's no issue there.
I would think that, and just any liability, if it's better to go through CCS based on how many assets they own and all that fun stuff. I don't know.
But the insurance is at CROA.
And in the contract, we hold the insurance, if you look, and that's part of it. I did run this by Tom Slayton. He said that there were no legal issues that he saw involved in it, but I think Kevin's right. I think, you know, part of the issue is 4th of July happens on July, and everybody wants fireworks on the same day. And so there is a deadline to get this done and get the contract. And this is, correct me, JR, this is the same company that did Founders Day, right? Yeah, which was amazing. So
it's the same company as always.
Yeah, well, I mean, I assume it is. There are some other companies out there, but this is the one that we've been using.
And this year, the 4th is actually on a Monday coming up. Are we doing as we've done in past years, doing it a different day?
Yeah, on the 4th.
It will be on the 4th. Excellent. Yeah, I think the only other person I would consult is Lou or whoever for the insurance and just make sure everything checks off with them as well.
So can we amend the motion then to say that we're approving the expenditure subject to the sponsorship agreement with Lexington being completed?
100% of fireworks.
And it's 100%, not just the fireworks cost. It's 100% of
the expense to put on fireworks.
Doing fireworks.
I want everything right down to the lighter that sets them off. Not just, here's a firework and have at it.
So I support that motion. But as I read it in the board book, it would be 100% out of CROA, which I do not support. I do not support 30 or 35 grand of resident dollars for 20 minutes.
But what we're saying here is we're not approving it. We're approving it subject to a sponsorship.
So I support that motion. Full cost, not just the fireworks.
Okay, so then let me clarify this just a little. What if Lexington came back and said no? So let's, and I'm making these numbers up. This is 28,350, and you got another. It's total 32,000.
We'll revisit the
so let's say it's
it.
32,000. What if JR came back and said Lexington's willing to do 28,000, but he's got another 4,000 coming from XYZ contractors? Do we care? As long as
that's fine. They can just be sponsors. But
no,
yeah,
sponsorship.
So we're willing to do it. We want JR to find sponsors that, and if Lexington wants to be advertised as the sponsor of the fireworks, then they cover the whole thing. Otherwise, we want to find a couple sponsors.
Do you believe you can find sponsors?
Lauren, can we find sponsors?
We'll work on it.
Okay.
You'll find them, JR.
So it's contingent on sponsorship.
So that's the motion. The motion is revised to contingent on sponsorship. And the decision as to whether it's a CROA contract or a CCS contract or CROA with reimbursement from CCS for other stuff, we'll look at insurance and we'll look at some of the legal budget. Okay, call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we're good to go on that one. Motion to approve the purchase of lane line reel and cover at Lakeside Park Pool by Swim Outlet in the amount of $3587.36. Replacement reserves.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, Celia seconds. Any comments?
Kelly's been asking for this, rightfully so. She's sitting here in the audience tonight. We appreciate what you're doing. Again, I just want to make this point, because I know we just had this conversation about Little League. We are not opposed to doing things for children in this community. We do a lot of things for children and for people that are older than children and for people that are
Old like you.
okay, fine. We do the best we can to make sure that we improve amenities. Kelly brought this particular need to us. The Recreation Committee looked at it. They said, yep, absolutely, we should do it. It's really a no-brainer. It's not a big amount. But I just want to make the point that we do lots of things for everybody in the community. And it's not about being pro-kids or anti-kids. It's about doing the best we can and what's right. And so I think this is an easy one to do. And thank you for all you're doing.
Can I actually make a comment real quick? Kelly Walton, 114 Parlor Avenue. I also run Celebration Cycling Swim Team. Thank you guys for your support. I wanted to say that first and foremost. And I also wanted to thank Lauren for her support. She's taken the time to meet with me personally and listen to the needs of the team and the needs of the residents, because most of our team are residents. I've lived here in town for 20 years. My parents live here, my in-laws live here. We very much believe in the concept of celebration and the community that it offers all age groups. I do want to ask that maybe we look into putting lane lines also at Spring Park Pool. Our program has been expanding. We're now a USA charter. We're also a not-for-profit organization. We've taken the kids on campus tours of colleges. We do a lot more than just coach swimming. And that's something that I believe firmly in. My background, I've been at Celebration High School for 17 years. I'm kind of on this journey right now, figuring out what direction my career is going to take me in. But our younger kids, our elementary program, we have requested 2 lanes at Spring Park Pool to offer the residents, always have a lane open at Lakeside, because there are residents who come and want to swim. And I try my hardest, my program, my staff, we all try our hardest to accommodate when there's a resident who wants to come. You know, we are not there to monopolize the pool. We're there to offer a service and an outlet for our children. But Spring Park Pool does also need lane lines, which would also mean it needs a lane line reel and backstroke flags. We have several swimmers who are getting disqualified at meets, the younger swimmers, because they don't have backstroke flags at Spring Park. And the pool deck's actually already been fitted for to have them. It just needs to be, we just need to get flags. So I'm just kind of asking that we can maybe look into that as well.
So you sent me an email and I'd actually followed up with Susanna and Lauren. Has the rec committee approved this?
So we met at the rec committee last night. We were here till I think 9 o'clock. I haven't directly proposed it to them yet because I knew it was on the agenda tonight. So I thought I would bring it here. If you would like me to bring that to the rec committee in February to move forward, I'm happy to do that.
I conceptually, I don't have a problem. I'd like the rec committee to approve it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. Give me
I mean, I think at the end of the day, that was going to be a question before it came up, is if we've considered doing this over at Spring Park. So I don't see how this could harm anybody by just getting it now and possibly looking at a better deal, save some shipping, whatever the case is, on getting a couple more. But I mean, this thing has been replaced in 25 years. I think we've paid for the reserves time and time again.
Is it the same? Is it the same amount of money?
I don't know how many we would need.
We'd have to look into it. I mean, the lane, because here's my ultimate, what I would like to see. I'd love to see Lakeside Pool outfitted with new lane lines. Since we're getting a new reel, let's get some new lane lines. And then the lane lines that are currently at Lakeside, we can actually shorten them because Lakeside's a meter facility and Spring Park is a yard facility. We can actually shorten those lane lines and actually move our existing lane lines to Spring Park. So it would just be a matter of getting one set of new lane lines and another reel.
We have meetings, 2 of them in February. Let's just.
And I will be
let's
there, so
approve
that's
this
no
one
problem.
And just get the details. I don't think we're fighting about the money. I think we're just,
Yeah,
what are the
that's-
details?
Okay, great.
Is that a fair summary?
Yep.
Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're done.
Thank you all so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
I really
Thank-
appreciate it.
Thank you for what you do too.
Thanks, Kelly.
What's next?
12.
12. Motion to approve the painting of Memorial Gardens by Vice Painting in the amount of $1,995 replacement reserve.
So moved.
Second,
Any comments? We touched on it earlier.
glad it's moving on. Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Motion to renew a 1-year contract with Nanette's for ballroom dance as recommended by the Recreation Committee.
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve replacement shutters for South Village Townhomes by Architectural Depot in the amount of 42,167.64 South Village Townhomes replacement reserves. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Okay. Suzanne, give us a little information. 42,000 is enough money, we should ask a question.
Yes. So this is the conclusion of the painting project for South Village Townhomes that was started in the fall. Part of the reserves, when it comes to painting, includes replacement of the shutters. This was put on hold because of the COVID has caused a lot of issues with materials. They didn't have some of the shutters. Now they're making the larger ones again. We had a hard time. So, and of course the cost did increase. However, I laid out kind of some of the money in the cover sheet. We did save money from the painting. So there is extra money there available to cover the overage of the shutters.
Okay, good.
Suzanne, I noticed on the order form, the credit card is the name of someone who no longer works here,
Yes.
and it's a MasterCard. So
Yeah,
you might want to tell them that's changed so they don't.
They know.
Okay.
They just didn't update their files, but it's not getting paid that way.
Okay.
Other comments?
Just a note, it was approved by the committee, so we're good there as well.
All opposed, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes. Okay, motion, how many are we talking about here, Susanna?
The new list.
Updated this year.
Oh, it's
just don't
down
have-
to 12 now?
12. Okay, motion to initiate the planning process for 12 non-compliance items through notification of the Covenants Committee, meeting to approve or reject the fine.
Kevin, was this what you were asking?
I have
about?
a question. So moved.
Can we
for
make the motion first
discussion.
and second?
So moved.
Suzanne, I did shoot an email off earlier. I don't know if you had the chance to see it. So my question is regarding items number 1 and 2. Most of those were in progress except for 2 items that I can only assume to be major. I can't tell because the descriptions are minor and quick. So I have 2 questions. I'll start with that one. Is the reason why they're on here because I see that owner was doing progress? Do they not have time? Are they not?
Can you
I
please
have
clarify when
resources,
you say
whatever.
they're doing progress, you mean they're working on it
Your
right now?
updated list today had some items crossed out.
Yeah, you say
Oh.
cross items there.
There's 1 item for each that's remaining that look like they could be
Right,
larger ticket items.
right. So they had done the other items, but they hadn't addressed.
Yes.
That
Have you had
one.
conversation with them? Do we know why they didn't?
No,
Because
I
clearly you
don't,
got through to them.
yeah, I don't know. I don't have the details on that.
The date on both of those shows that it's like 16 to 18 months.
I know, but we
From
also know that
initiation.
it's been a hard 2 years and response time isn't great and they are showing progress. So I would just want to know a little bit more about their situation. before we go
Well,
after them.
what I
Or
will tell you.
Covenants move forward with them.
Well, what I will tell you though is that it is often at the covenants hearing where those conversations happen because the homeowners come to the meetings and they talk to the covenants committee about the situation or they reach out to us and we relay it to the committee. So I've been in so many meetings, that's usually when all those come up. You give a progress and I will usually just reach out and say, did you get the letter? Did you see, you might want to provide some background on that.
When that returns, I guess we'll Well, somebody else will look at it more. I won't have to. My question then for number 16 and 17. These are both within a condo facility, different condominium
We only
associations.
have 12.
Are these the short-term?
We only have 12.
I'm sorry, you're,
Yeah, we've changed the numbering, but
11 and 12.
are these the two
Okay.
short-term rentals?
Yeah,
yes.
at the bottom.
So my question is essentially, have you talked or communicated with the associations that those condos are in? Because perhaps they're going through the same motions that you are, and is there any advantage of, for lack of a better term, teaming up, maybe working together for the compliance?
That is how these have initiated. They've reached out to us for assistance. Because a lot of times, we talked about this at the condo council, they see homeowners coming and going. They see the activity more than we will. So they can provide the information to help with that. And, they'll reach out to the owner. If they don't make progress, they provide it to us and then we follow up because CROA has the final capabilities. So we do work with the condos on these. They actually reach out to us for assistance.
Okay. I just recall one address from the past, from the association I was with.
Yeah.
So, okay, interesting.
Yeah, the president reached out to us on that one, so.
Any other comments? Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, good. Motion to approve 4 resident waiver fee request.
So moved.
Second? I'll second it.
Management's recommending all 4,
Any comments?
They all fall within there.
and none has had a prior
amounts.
issue.
Call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. No opposed. Motion to approve list of owners ineligible to vote in the 2022 CROA Board of Directors election. Suzanne or Lauren, why don't you at least describe the process so people online can hear it? and tell us-
We need a motion.
Oh,
So moved.
Second.
perfect.
So Ariel ran a list of delinquent accounts over 90 days. We then took that account and I had 2 individual staff members go through the list in its entirety, each of them separately, to verify that it was truly a delinquent account over 90 days and it was not a transition error or some other issue. So this is how we got to this list.
This also includes service
This
area.
also includes the service areas, yes.
So there's 263 of them. Do you notify them then?
We will, upon your vote, we will send out a letter to them and they will be able and eligible to cure their ineligibility up until the 31st of the end of February. And if they cure in that time frame before voting closes, then we can provide them their voting credentials and they can vote.
And what becomes of the mailing that is ready to go out with ballots? Are those pulled pending their payment?
We've already held those names
Oh,
back.
you've held them back, okay. So they don't get a ballot?
They won't get a ballot.
And they won't
yet.
get an online link or anything
No.
until that's cleared? Got it.
There are some surprising names on this list,
Yes.
which makes me wonder if this is transitional errors or not understanding or payments that got put in the wrong place. It's a great way to figure out where the mistakes are, but I think it's pretty clear that there are a lot of mistakes in here. These are people that I'm quite certain make their payments. and
So
have-
let's just write a soft letter to go with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, so the soft letter, it's not just, you're not gonna be able to vote, it's, we have found as we're preparing for the voting.
If this is real, your ability to vote is
In jeopardy.
impaired.
Yes.
And so if there is an error or something, come and let's get it corrected.
We asked them to come reach out to us, phone, email, come in, and we'll work with you to find, if there was an error, we'll work with you to find the error and.
Could we ask that the call center people be informed about this and understand what this is so that when somebody makes this specific call, that they don't, because they're going to be frustrated.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that when that call goes in, the call center knows what they're talking about and knows how to resolve that promptly, right?
Is there any other consequence for a resident who is over 90 days delinquent at this point?
No, I would think
Besides
they, I would
inability
think
to-
they can't serve on a committee, they can't run
Right,
for
yeah.
CROA, right?
Well, there's, yeah.
And I see some committee members' names on here,
So
so,
that's the way it needs to soften.
yeah.
Yeah, soft approach.
For the purposes of the voting aspect, I agree. I just have some questions about this, and actually, in executive, I just talked to Tom a little bit about it. If these are accurate, and I noticed some properties are actually rental properties, it's something that perhaps management can talk with Tom about how to get this secured quicker. We can actually request the funds from the tenant and have this taken care of much quicker. That's one, just because there's a lot of names on here that are either repetitive. So I don't know somebody that has, 7 properties for themselves. And we should be able to easily find that as long as the leases are on file. Because keep in mind that those ones that are behind, they're giving themselves away now. If they don't have a lease on file, we need to be going after that as well. All their amenities are shut off, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Every one of these
Right.
individuals.
90 days delinquent, right?
They should be.
Yeah.
I'm curious if they are.
Will be.
They will be. And there's a couple of addresses, Celia also notices as well, that are repeat. So I'm curious if it is an admin item. You can look at number 175 through 179, not repeat in terms of that specific, but different unit numbers within that same address.
Yeah.
And that's just too coincidental. And it would make a surprise to me.
Yeah.
And it's throughout several different types of associations.
Yeah.
Cool. Those are my comments.
So let me call the vote. We have asked Lauren to make sure this is handled with kid gloves, and Susanna, and be prepared. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gary, come on up. So it passes.
Gary Hudson, in the charter, there's a page and a half of sanctions for this type of situation. A few of them are automatic, such as not being able to vote. But some of the other sanctions require a board vote. So I don't think you can take away their access to amenities without voting on them by name. We might look into that.
That's a great question, Gary. I think we need to ask Tom. I would trust you as being the expert on the charter. So I'll ask Tom. And
I mean, it might actually make sense because we had a notice.
Yeah,
Those
it does
that you
make
mentioned
sense.
before.
Yeah, it does.
So when this letter goes out. it
Okay,
should-
Let's get the facts. We should do it right.
Okay, got it.
All right, the last item is board comments. Mr. Mummy, any comments?
Only one. I'm excited that we're in an election season. I'm glad that there's enthusiasm and interest in the election. I hope that the rhetoric around this election stays focused on what's best for the community and avoids characterizations and personalities and misinformation. I think that every person that's running deserves a lot of credit for putting themselves out there and offering up their services and their time. This is not a volunteer position, it's a volunteer job. And I appreciate so much that people do that. What I don't appreciate is characterizations that are really personal and really go beyond what should be said about anyone that volunteers their time and energy to this community. And so I think, and I know you would never say this, Brian, but some of the comments that were made were just over the line. And I'm sorry that that happened. I don't agree with any of that. I don't think there's any bullying that goes on in this board. I don't think there's any attempt except to let people have their voice and their say. And I appreciate very much your service and the service of every member of this board, past and present, for all the good work that they do.
Cindy?
Ditto.
Kevin?
Yeah, I'll echo that.
Celia?
Ditto.
Oh, God.
No.
David's not gonna ditto,
No, you won't get a ditto here.
I just want to thank you guys. It's been a very good year, good learning experience. And the best part of my year is that group of people in the back there, Amber and Stacy and Susanna and Lauren being our new executive director, and JR and Patrick and Brian, I'm gonna haunt you, and thank you for being part of our community.
David?
Well, I would say ditto, but you took all my time. No, it's nice having all of us here. You know, occasionally some of us have to Zoom or whatever we call this, Teams in. That's been past and that's going to be future. It's nice to have that technology working, but most important, it's a good partnership. So I appreciate the good collaboration among the six of us, initially seven, now six, and then the people in the room who are with Grand Manors, old faces. I'm sorry. Not Asian faces.
It's okay, David. I
Keep
digging.
You managed the transition well, thank you, and I just look forward to what we're building. It's a better tomorrow. It's a great today. It's to be better tomorrow.
Oh, I like that.
It's a great, big, beautiful.
There's a song. There's some song in there.
Yeah.
Brian?
I'll close with one comment. I think our predecessor managing company ended up failing and dying at the end of the day because they didn't have the involvement of the people that we've got in the back row. We've talked about the transition tonight. It is not done, but if the back row continues to show up, we will be in great shape. So I beg of you, please do not become strangers. Thank you for being here tonight. Appreciate it. And it is really nice to see an audience. This has been meaningful the last 2 or 3 meetings. So I thank everybody and have a great evening. Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
We're done.